Ready? Okay. Good evening and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Woodbury County Zoning Commission. Today is March 25th, 2024. It is 5 p.m. Yeah, 5:02. Tonight's meeting will be audio taped and minutes will be prepared. In respect to all parties, we ask those present turn off cell phones or set to vibrate. Those in attendance are asked to legibly complete the attendance sheet up on the front table. I would like to take a moment to review the procedures that the commission will follow tonight. First, the commission will handle the normal housekeeping agenda items. Then for each application on the agenda, I will open the public hearing on the item. The planning and zoning staff will then present the staff report, including the staff recommendation. Any letters or other communication received from the public prior to the hearing will be entered into the record. The applicant will then have the opportunity to present his or her case and respond to staff report. Next, we will hear comments from the public. If you would like to speak either in support of or against the application, you must come to the microphone. Please first state your name and address for the record. All interested parties should be heard, but repetitious comments should be avoided. Repetitious or irrelevant comments may be rolled out of order by the chair. I ask that you remain respectful and courteous with your comments at all time. A limit of 3 minutes for comments will be enforced. After public comments have been heard, the staff and applicant may make a closing statement. The hearing shall then be closed by motion and vote. Thereafter, no further comments from the staff, public, or applicant may be heard unless asked for by the commission. The commission shall then deliberate the case and may ask questions of the applicant, the staff, or any party offering testimony. However, such questions do not reopen the hearing for additional comments from the public unless so requested or approved by the commission. The commission will then formulate and vote on a motion. The motion will typically either grant or deny the requested application. Any commission member who has an ex parte communication to place in the record of this meeting should do so prior to the beginning of the deliberation of the respective agenda item. That being said, let the record reflect that all commissioners are present tonight. The next item on the agenda is the public comment on matters not on the agenda. Do you have anyone that wants to comment on anything other than what's on the agenda? I'm seeing or hearing none. We're going to move on to the approval of the minutes of February 26, 2024.
A motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay. Okay, we have an abstaining, whatever the word is. Okay. Thank you. And the next item on our agenda then is items of business. The first one being public hearing and action item for proposed Woodbury County Comprehensive Plan 2040 summary. Dan, do you want to read that information into the record, please?
Yes, this is consideration of a comp plan for the purpose of establishing a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors pursuant to Iowa Code Chapter 335.5. The proposed Woodbury County Comprehensive Plan is intended to serve as an advisory document that outlines the county's vision into the future. The purpose of this comprehensive plan is to provide a current inventory of community services and resources and a thoughtful statement of the county's vision and goals for the future. The comprehensive plan includes analysis of the following topics: housing, economic development, transportation, public infrastructure and utilities, community facilities and services, land use and natural resources, disaster response, recovery, and resiliency. The draft copy of this has, of course, been available in the publication, and it's been online for an inspection at a tinyurl.com address, as noted on the agenda. I will have to say briefly some background on this plan. It's been a while that this plan has been in development. The Board of Supervisors back in December of 2020, to be exact, December 8th of 2020, came into agreement with Simcoe to work with the county on developing this comprehensive plan. And it was put together with the use of CARES Act money as well as county funding as well, $50,000 for the CARES Act money. The remaining $50,000 to the county being a $100,000 project. And during the time since approval, we've definitely ran into a few roadblocks with COVID and various other issues that have impacted zoning. And so, however, during that time frame, and I'll definitely defer some of this to Aaron, who's here tonight from Simcoe. The Simcoe did a lot of research, a lot of qualitative research in terms of collecting data from the community to understand in these various categories as referenced on really what kind of county you want to be. And kind of a statement that oftentimes, as a researcher myself, it stands out is when you poll the public or ask how they feel about certain situations, there's a famous saying, it says, you stand where you sit. So all of the different categories across the county, there's various stakeholders involved where many of these topics have very special meaning to them, as many of their work flows, work paths are very much linked into the comprehensive plan. Any future policies that are proposed, and what kind of county we want to be, what kind of department we want to be. We can go back and point to this document as a guide to assist us in how we engage public policy. So this statement, it came, you stand where you sit, actually comes from a bureaucrat, Rufus Miles Jr., oftentimes coined the Miles Law, but it's this kind of a fascinating aspect that helps me think about the position that each and every stakeholder has. Every single person that is offered a comment, whether through the county fair, filling out a survey, or other engagements, really telling us a bit about the expectations on these various topics, whether it's economic development, transportation, land use, etc. So the document that is here tonight for consideration is a culmination of all of this research that has taken place during this time frame, which has been used to craft together much of this on looking into the future content. So with that said, I would defer to Aaron to describe some more about the comp plan.
Hi, I'm Corinne Erickson from Simcoe, 6401 Gordon Drive. So Dan covered a lot of, what has gone into this plan and sort of what we see as the importance of having this plan in place. To add a little bit more background on the process and the timeline. So we did start the development back in 2021, as he mentioned, with the CARES Act funding for COVID-19 relief. From there, we put together a steering committee to help guide the process. So it's brought together representatives from emergency management and services departments, engineering, the conservation board, law enforcement, board of supervisors, zoning, and community and economic development. And we met with them about 5 times throughout the planning process. And then, like he said, we also had extensive input via a survey that was distributed at the county fair. So we had over 450 residents respond to that. At that point in the process, we were dealing with some staff changes both at Simcoe and at the county. So the project was put on pause and then picked back up again in the fall of 22. So that's when we crafted the goals and objectives based on the survey results and historical research, as well as input from the steering committee. And then we brought those to the public. We had 4 open house events to present those goals and objectives. And then those were also posted online for people to submit electronically as well. And then last spring in 23, the complete draft was publicized, and we had another public open house opportunity here at the courthouse. And then we also presented to the Zoning Commission, the Board of Appeals, and the Board of Supervisors for review as well. So as you can see, it's been a long process. We've had a couple of delays with the staff changes, and then as Dan referred to, we paused the process for the discussion over the pipeline and the utility scale solar zoning just before moving forward for adoption. So over this time, though, we feel confident that the plan has been developed with a lot of opportunities for public input and good engagement from residents, and we've been able to incorporate those comments and that feedback throughout the process. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about the plan. That's just a little bit of background on where we've been in the timeline. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and open this item up for public comment. Do we have anyone that has any questions or comments on the comprehensive plan?
My name is Daniel Hare, 2889 Humboldt Avenue, Hornick, Iowa. I guess personally, I got to say that I'm pretty disappointed with the land use and natural resources page of this. This is something that I've been working on kind of for the last year. I've talked to Aaron about it months ago. I've distributed handouts at the county fair. I posted this on my Woodbury County Preservation Facebook page, which I'm a member of or a founder of with over 400 members. And you guys don't mind, I'd like to submit that handout to you. Can I submit this to the board? Okay.
We have to make a motion to do that. Okay, we need someone to make a motion.
Make a motion, we receive it.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. You. Fine.
At the time when we were gathering, when Simcoe was supposed to be gathering, public input for this, this is the handout I had created and handed out at the fair and also put on my page. What bothers me about the land use and natural resources part of this, I believe it's almost verbatim what we had, years ago in the previous plan. And the particular paragraph I have a problem with is the last one on the right-hand side of the page. But as you read through this, you guys have, Simcoe has preserve environmentally sensitive lands. You go down into that, a few bullet points, and it says strengthen erosion control policies and grade and excavation limitations for development in the Loess Hills. You go up in the middle of the page, it says limit urban sprawl and maintain the rural character of Woodbury County. You read down a few bullet points there. It says limit interstate development to interchanges or to within city jurisdictions to preserve agricultural land and maintain scenic views of the Loess Hills. Then you come down here to the last paragraph on the page and it says plan for the creation and the use of alternative and renewable energy sources in Woodbury County. First bullet point down from that, it says support landowners' individual choices to implement renewable energy infrastructure. That's exactly what was on the old plan. We didn't change this at all. And that's where I had the problem with this plan at. I think this is extremely, extremely vague wording. And I think, just in my opinion, because I've been watching the wind turbine fiasco play out in this county, I think this kind of vague wording is what got us in trouble in the first place. Now, I want to applaud you guys for the hard work you did during the solar ordinance hearings. You guys had several hearings, you met with the public, you took public comments, and you did that, in my opinion, the right way. But I think after all those hearings you guys had on the solar side of things, I think the majority of the people that spoke out against that, it was obvious that residents wanted industrial activities or industrial projects to be separated from agriculture, land uses and projects. And so I think if we were to change this paragraph here on the land use and natural resources, what I wanted to implement, I think this is way more, I guess it's not as vague. Right now, it's way too vague. And if you look at what I wrote down here, I think that utility scale alternative and renewable energy sources should be zoned and placed in industrial districts in order to minimize the adverse impacts to agriculture and residential living. And then point number one I had was preserve agricultural land for agriculture purposes. Number two, recognize that alternative and renewable energy projects should remain in industrial zone land. Number three, respect the intrinsic beauty of our lush hills and natural landscapes and the great value of our rural residents' quality of life. Number four, utility scale alternative and renewable energy projects should be viewed as industrial activities. Number five, preserve our agricultural land for future generations and protect our conservation areas for hunting, hiking, camping, and recreational use. Now, you guys wouldn't have to implement all of that, but I think we definitely need to have a little bit of rewording on that last paragraph down there under land use and natural resources. If you guys didn't want to throw it all out, you could say you support the landowner's individual choices to, implement personal or private renewable energy infrastructure. But I think the delineation between personal and private and industrial definitely needs to be made here.
Daniel, I'm sorry, but your time's up.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. So
Thank you.
that's the point.
Thank you.
So please consider that.
Daniel, you didn't happen to have a page number, did you? I guess our page numbers and yours might not be the same.
Are you talking about the comprehensive plan?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that would be, well, yeah, there wasn't a page number on the print off of that I had. It's the land use and natural resources page. It's about the last one in the handout that I had.
Hang on, we're trying to find it in our packet.
Okay,
Thank you. Well, okay.
Yeah, they should be.
Commissioners, any comments? Or maybe this is the time you want to comment, but is there anyone else from the public that wants to make any comments at this time? Thank you for that. Yours is right in front of the packet. Isn't it? Packets aren't the same.
I guess I'd have a question for Daniel on the last paragraph, that section, the continuously update policies that regulate renewable energy and infrastructure to ensure that it does not present safety hazards and to minimize disruptions to surrounding land uses. That section there is okay.
Yeah, I guess I don't really have any problem with that. I mean, the final bullet point, which I didn't, speak on, was seek federal and state funding for the expansion of electrical vehicle charging infrastructure. My opinion, I mean, this is Woodbury County. Why are we worried about that? I think we should leave that up to gas stations. And, I mean, I don't think that's something Woodbury County should, be worried about or concerned with as electrical vehicle charging stations. My main point was delineating industrial activities and utility scale, industrial activities from private use of renewable energy infrastructure. I think we're way too vague on that on bullet point number 1, where it just says support landowners' individual choices to implement renewable energy infrastructure. I think we need to have delineation there between industrial, utility scale operations.
Thank you.
Corinne, can you comment on our packet?
Yeah.
So just to clarify, the request would be to specify between the utility scale and the sort of the smaller or private scale. Is that what I'm getting? Because that is something, we could update the language to reflect that.
I think if you could, I think Daniel had made a reference to the handout. I know you've worked off the handout quite a
Mhm.
bit because it summarizes it. Could you kind of point to the handout versus the section? Are those bullet points, they pretty much reflect the section?
Yeah.
So under the land use and natural resources in the packet that they have before them, that's what Daniel is working off of. So we've been attempting to locate it, within the chapter there. And
Oh, I see.
I think that's what we're trying to
Yes.
clarify.
Yeah, so that would be what is, that's a summary of the
Yeah.
goals and objectives in there.
Okay,
So that will be it should be the same
Is this,
wording. isn't
is
it?
this something that we really want a lot of detail on though? Because I mean, this is supposed to be for 2040. We
Right.
want to have a certain amount of
Mhm.
vagueness to it.
Right, and that's, I think why we tried to include some language about, private landowners and kind of balancing that with, we want to leave that open as technology and these things evolve. So that was kind of the original purpose for that language,
Mhm.
because, we don't have a crystal ball, and that technology can evolve over time, so.
I think the more detail you get, the more you kind of paint yourself into a corner in some of these aspects. But a lot of this stuff will get picked up when it comes before us too,
Mhm.
as a zoning commission or as a board of adjustment.
Right,
Okay,
exactly.
so comprehensive plan is just a generalization of plan of
Mhm.
potentially future
Yeah,
activities.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay,
A sort of a guide for policy, whereas the zoning can fine tune that and exactly where you want to make those allowances.
okay. Thank you.
Okay, up on the screen, I think I got it. It's page 128 of the plan and 142 of the packet. Is that?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just agree with what you just said, that this page is a general summary. And then if you want the details of whether it's utility scale or personal, and you dig into the ordinances. That's just,
I guess historically, that's pretty much what we've seen and what we've used for comprehensive plans. I mean, we haven't seen updates, but we haven't seen the demand for updates either. I mean, that's kind of what we see. That's our jobs as far as commissioners go on a zoning commission and board of adjustment.
I realize you're coming from with that statement, but I do want to let you guys know that support landowners' individual choices to implement renewable energy. You know, I believe that's where we got this wind turbine ordinance from that just came out of nowhere during COVID. You know, there's no public input there. And if I read that, you know, back when we started the big turbine fight, and that right there made it look like to me like, well, if I'm a supervisor, this is you know, why we want this ordinance here, because it's in our comp plan. You know, I don't think there's anything wrong with, you know, delineating you know, utility scale versus private use, you know, renewable projects, other than just a blanket statement like that. Because the way I read that, if I was a supervisor, like, well, we have this in here, we need to put renewable energy projects anywhere in the county. You know, but I think you guys saw with the solar argument that, you know, people wanted a delineation for private use versus industrial scale. And I don't think I'm asking too much, you know, to have that delineated in this comp plan. And I guess this comp plan is supposed to be all about public input. And so I'm here, you know, representing the public, and you guys know how hard this is to get people here, but I've had conversations with lots of people about this, and I guess I happen to be the front man for it. So I think you guys should really take what I'm, you know, saying here as, you know, God's honest public input. So thanks.
Do you have anyone else that'd like to comment on the comprehensive plan tonight? We have two people on the phone.
Yes, there are two on the phone.
I'm not hearing any comments from them.
No comment here. Thank you, though.
Whoever's on the phone, do you have a comment about the comprehensive plan? Part of our agenda?
No, but thank you for recognizing us. Appreciate
Okay.
it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peter Woodman, 1847, Old Highway 141, Sergeant Bluff. I just want to agree with what Dan's been saying. I've touched base with a lot of people within the county. I know we've had some hard fights on the wind turbines first and then the solar. And I think it's very important that we protect ourselves as we move forward into the future on some of the green energy that's being pushed down from the top. Otherwise, we won't have a county to pass on to our kids. So thank you.
Anyone else? That mean we were ready to move on, commissioners? I'm not hearing anything from the public. Are we ready to close the public hearing? Maybe a motion.
I'd move to close the public hearing.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, please.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimously have closed the public hearing for the proposed Woodbury County Comprehensive Plan 2040. At this point, then, now it's commissioners. It's your turn.
I would make a motion to amend the comprehensive plan as presented in front of us to include a statement under the renewable energy infrastructure that states support landowners' individual choices to implement renewable energy infrastructure for personal and private use.
We have a motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further comments?
Just bullet one.
Correct. And the reasoning for that is to address the utility scale solar or wind renewable energy. And I think that might clear up some of that vagueness that's been brought up. I know it doesn't meet all of your suggested comments in your bullet points. But I think that will help with addressing some of those concerns.
And I guess I'd also like to add to the second paragraph there. like to add the second paragraph there does allow for some of that protection too within the proposal by Daniel. And I think the motion does clarify a little bit better
Okay.
on how it applies.
Okay, so unless we have any further comments, I have a motion and a second on the floor.
Clarify if it's just a motion to adjust the plan or recommend to the supervisors.
I think Jeff, was it a motion to recommend the comprehensive plan with
Correct, with the amendment.
the amendment? Okay. Everyone's clear on that? Okay, we have a motion and a second. We have no further instruction or in comments. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, that motion carried unanimously. Next item on the agenda, public hearing action item for the proposed zoning ordinance text amendments to the floodplain management ordinance section 5.03 of the Woodbury County zoning ordinance. Dan, you want to read that information into our record, please?
Yes, this adjustment to the floodplain management ordinance, this proposed language, go ahead and put it up here on the screen. The summary up. The Woodbury County, like the other jurisdictions in Iowa, are members of the National Flood Insurance Program. And so FEMA and the DNR definitely have an influence on what our ordinances must say to remain in good standing in the NFIP. And one of the big things that's happened over the last several years is amendments to the floodplain maps have been made. They've used 2-foot LiDAR technology to reshoot the land across the county and adopt new maps. And it looks like our adoption date is July 17th, 2024. And one of the reasons we need to address this ordinance is to prepare for that date, because our ordinance right now points to the current maps that are on the books. And so once we transition to the other maps, this would give the county authority to regulate the new footprint of the floodplain. And so I'm just going to read this off for the public record. This is a proposal to amend the text of the Woodbury County zoning ordinance to repeal and replace portions of section 5.03, the floodplain management ordinance. The proposal is to repeal and replace the following sections. There are several amendments, 4 amendments. The first amendment is on page 59 of the ordinance. It's to repeal and replace section 5.03.1 AA with the following: to include new factory built home, park, or subdivision. The statement will include a factory built home, park, or subdivision for which the construction of facilities for servicing the lots on which the factory-built homes are to be affixed, including at a minimum the installation of utilities, the construction of streets, and either final site grading or the pouring of concrete pads is completed on or after the effective date of the first floodplain management regulations by the community. The second amendment is on page 62 to repeal and replace section 5.03B with the following: B, which is the establishment of the official floodplain zoning map, the flood insurance rate map or FIRM for Woodbury County and the incorporated areas dated July 17th, 2024, which has been prepared as part of the National Flood Insurance Study for Woodbury County are hereby adopted by reference and declared to be the official floodplain zoning map. The Woodbury County Flood Insurance Study is hereby adopted by reference and is made part of this ordinance for the purpose of administering the floodplain management regulations. Amendment 3 is on page 72 to repeal and replace section 5.03.10B subsection 4 with the following: in cases where the variance involves a lower level of flood protection for structures than what is ordinarily required by this ordinance, the applicant shall be notified in writing over the signature of the administrator that The issuance of a variance will result in increased premium rates for flood insurance up to amounts as high as $25 for $100 of insurance coverage, and such construction increases risk to life and property. Amendment 4 on page 73 to repeal and replace section 5.0310C2 with the following decisions. The board shall arrive at a decision on appeal or variance with a reasonable time. In passing upon an appeal, the board may, so long as such action is in conformity with provisions of this ordinance, reverse or affirm wholly and or part, or modify the order, requirement, decision, determination appealed from, and it shall make its decision in writing, setting forth the findings of fact and the reasons for its decision. In granting a variance, the board shall consider such factors as contained in this section and all other relevant sections of this ordinance, and may prescribe such conditions as contained in section 5.03-10C2B. And so that's the general wording of what those changes would be, which were requested of Woodbury County to make in preparation for July 17th of 2024. That's all I've got.
We need to open the public hearing on this one as well.
Yeah.
So I need a motion.
Not to open, you can declare.
Okay, I'm opening the public hearing, sorry. Do we have anyone that wants to speak to the floodplain language? I'm hearing no one on the phone. Okay, which means we need to close the public hearing. I vote.
A motion to close.
Make a motion to close the
Okay.
public hearing.
We have a motion. Can I get a second? All in favor, say aye. Okay, commissioners? Comments, questions? Clarification? Motion.
And just to clarify, it would be a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors.
Also to point out, again, this is language that was directed by FEMA, approved by DNR. Is that the proper way to say it?
They coordinate together, and we get a letter telling us that we have to reference the maps. And so FEMA has an individual that sends us the language and says that it's the expectation of both levels of government to maintain good standing in the NFIP that we pass this. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I'd make a motion to recommend to the Board of Supervisors to approve the amendments to section 5.03 of the Woodbury County zoning ordinance.
You good with that? Okay, we have a motion. Can I get a second?
I will second.
You have any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried unanimously. Next item on the agenda is the public hearing action item for proposed utility scale solar energy system zoning ordinance amendments. Dan, do you want to read that information into the record, please?
Yes, I will summarize it. This, of course, this is the public hearing for the proposed utility scale solar energy systems ordinance amendments. The first amendment is, go ahead and grab the text here. Basically, this amendment will entail adjusting the zoning ordinance, such as the table of contents, adding a new section entitled Section 5.08, Utility Scale Solar Energy Systems, US SES Conditional Use, and to include a renumbering of page numbers. And as a continuation from the previous zoning meeting where back in January, the zoning commission recommended the conditional use permit process in the general industrial area and directed staff and the county attorney's office to review the content before possibly sending it to the Board of Supervisors for recommendation. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to deliver the language that went through County Attorney's Office and staff back to the Zoning Commission for consideration by way of a public hearing to collect further input. And basically, at this time, I will report that staff and the county attorney's office did go through it and has delivered the draft back in the packet. There were a few adjustments, primarily to the decommissioning, where before there was some language in there about an escrow account kind of doubled up with a bond, and this language kind of streamlines the decommissioning for kind of clarity through the bond type of situation. Otherwise, there were some adjustments to definitions. The county attorney's office found some redundancy in some of the respective definitions because the zoning ordinance does have some of the language already defined within the back of the text. There was some language in there about conservation areas that were added because of the setback in the language as far as conservation area. So anything that's in the ordinance should have a relevant definition that is linked to that. But I want to be clear here that tonight's meeting is focused in on this language for the general industrial zoning district in particular. So one thing kind of to transition a little bit, I did get a couple comments. One came over the weekend from Robert Wilson, who is a managing member of an organization called Rangeland Energy Management LLC. He had sent some comments in via email as well as some attachment offering some discussion about utility solar scale systems on other areas besides industrial, talking about, looking at the agricultural lands, et cetera. So I would ask, I did distribute this to the commissioners, and I would ask that this information by Mr. Wilson be included in the record if you would consider to do a motion for receipt.
A motion to receive that information.
Okay, we've got a motion to receive the information. Do I have a second?
I will second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Okay, another document that we received a little after 4 o'clock today was from the city of Sioux City. They sent a letter written toward me by, of course, Mayor Robert Scott, and which highlights the city's concerns for setbacks, considering the protected zone near the corporate boundary, as they have, of course, a compelling interest for development within those ranges. So I would ask that Mayor Scott's statement written to me be received into the zoning commission record if you so choose.
Okay, if we so choose,
Motion to receive.
I need a motion. I got a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. It has been received. Thank you. Next, open the public meeting. Okay, public meeting is now open for any comments on the solar ordinance.
Good evening. My name is Rand Fisher, 15237 Woodcrest Drive, Clive, Iowa, but a former Sioux Cityan. I'm speaking this evening in my role as Director of the Center for Infrastructure and Economic Development. I will leave behind additional information and contact data that will more fully introduce our center and our organization. Its focus on local preparation, planning, and policies for facilitating renewable energy. When done thoughtfully, we believe renewable energy provides financial and quality of life improvements, creates good jobs, provides farmers and landowners income diversification and security, attracts new business and industries, and returns millions of dollars to local government and the regional economy. At the center, we have been following your work and deliberations. Like you, we know good policy is essential to good projects. Balancing individual choices, landowner rights, and necessary community protections isn't easy. Your commitment to citizen input and to research and discovery has been truly commendable. That said, this evening, we're here to clearly express our concern over the current status of your ordinance restricting conditional use application and authority for utility scale solar, singularly to industrial zone property. Industrial property typically provides for sewer, water, natural gas, multimodal transportation, and other often expensive and demanding infrastructure. In stark contrast, utility scale renewable energy sites do not require the investment, readiness, and marketing that accompany industrial sites and parks. We would urge you and the Board of Supervisors to further confer with all parties and organizations involved in county and regional economic development before restricting utility solar to this one zoning category. By prudently allowing conditional use permits in the agricultural zoned area of the county, you can avoid many issues while knowing that the land will be preserved to agriculture. Such would not be the case if land is permanently moved to industrial. Other process inefficiencies and problems seem likely in only allowing industrial property for solar investment. For these public policy reasons, we strongly urge you to take a second look at how a limited use of agricultural property for utility scale solar energy could maintain and strengthen your local economy, agricultural heritage, quality of life, and individual freedom. And I'll leave my remarks and our organizational materials behind. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, good. Do we have anyone else that'd like to speak to or have questions on?
Maybe you want to receive that into the record.
Okay.
Yeah.
We need to receive this into the record.
I'd make a motion that we receive the information into record.
Okay, got a motion?
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, items have been received. 5 of them there. I don't know what else. Do we have enough?
Yeah.
Got, okay. Okay, thank you.
Chris Madsen, Senior Planner with the City of Sioux City. Thank you for having this time, and Dan for taking the letter and distributing that to the members. We do just want to reiterate our concern about this land use within 2 miles generally of Sioux City or any city. As you know, the county and the city have been working diligently for utility infrastructure and road infrastructure improvements within the Southbridge area, the area south of Sioux City. I'm also working on a new interchange in that area. We simply feel that this use is not the highest and best use within that area with all that infrastructure improvements that are being made. And even looking at the comprehensive plan document that you just approved, looking at the support the efficient development in commercial and industrial operations within Southbridge and within the area of the interchange. We would agree with that and just look at this particular land use is not the highest and best use in that area. Outside of the 2 mile or your process, we wouldn't have any opinion on that. It's just that area within 2 miles. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I would just like to point out, as a Woodbury County resident and a farmer, Clive, Iowa, Polk County, Hornick, Iowa, Woodbury County. I'm a farmer. I live out here on the land. I live in this county. You guys did your due diligence on this industrial solar. Agriculture preservation means something in this county. Utility scale solar is an industrial activity. It belongs in industrial zone land, period. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Peter Woodman, 1847, Old Highway 141, Sergeant Bluff. I guess one thought I have is, when our illustrious mayor of Sioux City wants to tell the county what to do with their land. I find that kind of interesting. I think that the county, the people, the residents of the county probably know what's best for the area that's outside the city limits. And I just think it's a bad precedent set if we start listening to what the mayor wants. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone on the phone?
We do have two on the phone.
Yes, this is Tom Trahern, Next Era Energy. Can you hear me?
Just barely.
My apologies. Yes, I think it would be great if there would be some further look at providing the opportunity for solar as a conditional use in the ag districts. I know it was discussed at the last meeting and there didn't seem to be a lot of support for that, but I would also just bring up the fact that, you know, these projects are voluntary programs, and limiting the participation and not allowing ag uses would, you know, it is a property rights issue. I would also contend that solar, you know, is from a visual perspective, the ordinance that's provided would provide some screening and buffering, and that should go a long ways in maintaining, you know, the issues between residents that have solar and those that do not. In review of the ordinance, the regulations, if that were allowed to proceed and allowed as an ag use, that would provide the opportunity for development, and I think a responsible and reasonable development. You know, I think there's also just needs to be noted that there are many folks in the county that do support solar. The comp plan had a number of comments in it where people were saying we need to allow solar, and I think there's some fear of residents that maybe don't want to come to the meetings because it's this awful contentious issue. So I think the additional allowing the utility solar in the ag districts is something that should be considered. I also feel like the development in an industrial area where there's been infrastructure improvements have been placed to provide for employment centers, hard surface roads, sewer and water expansions. Those utilities come at a cost to the taxpayer. And if you direct utility development towards those areas and someone did happen to develop a project there, that there's going to be a significant loss to the county of that ground. There's a limited resource. I would say that the agricultural districts and allowing it as an accessory use in these ag districts where there's hundreds of thousands of acres, and there's very, very limited locations that these can be tied into the transmission list system in itself, and it makes it difficult. So I just think there needs to be a little more time spent in reviewing this and providing the opportunity for utility solar in the ag districts. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
There's another on the phone as well.
I'm hearing no further comments, so I think at this point in time, we'll close the public hearing. Do we need a motion? Oh, sorry.
Christopher Whitman, 1866 220th Street, Bronson. I would just like to point out, especially to the Next Era guy and this other guy that have been here, there are no other Woodbury County residents here trying to push the tag land. We've had that discussion, and I just thank you guys for all the time that you've put into it and all the public input. And that, I mean, I don't see the residents here pushing it on ag land. I see the businesses. So I do thank you for your time and all the effort you put into this ordinance and everything.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? I'm hearing and seeing no others. So at this point, I entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, you have a motion.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay, the public hearing has now been closed. Commissioners?
May I make a comment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, one thing I do want to point out, just to clarify, this ordinance, in a sense, keeps the similar policy that's been on Woodbury County books since 2008 as far as electrical energy generation, not including wind, was enumerated in as a conditional use since, at least as far as I can see, with the 2008 ordinance forward, if not before. And why am I saying that? Because, well, this isn't other than adding additional features or requirements, specifications. We've had applications such as the Mid-American project a few years back where they applied for a conditional use permit down by Port Neal Road under a conditional use permit process. So the underlying of this ordinance that is proposed right now is does add features and does give the zoning commission, the Board of Adjustment, and the Board of Supervisors. And I want to be very clear here. The zoning commission reviews the application. The Board of Adjustment considers it the conditional use for approval. However, we have another layer of public process of bringing the building permit aspect up to the Board of Supervisors, who will decide on the permit itself instead of staff. That's a difference, to add the supervisors to join the zoning commission and the Board of Adjustment inside of that process. So I do think it's important as part of this debate for the public to be aware of that this is adding some more infrastructure to the conditional use process that has been on the books. So we're not changing a particular area of where it's existing allowed in the county. So if we transition into the discussion of setbacks, for example, right now, the conditional use permit process doesn't have a prescribed list of setbacks, whether it's the city, whether it's conservation areas, airports, or the, let's see, cemeteries, airports, et cetera, that are listed within that document before you. I just want to be very clear about that as far as we have an existing process, and this right now is transitioned into an ordinance that offers further guidance on what a conditional use permit in the general industrial zoning district would look like. And so that's what this potential recommendation is designed for, to send up to the Board of Supervisors after this multi-month process of, I believe our first one was September 11th, 2023. And we've definitely gleaned a lot of information from the public, all sorts of best practices material, et cetera, and the comments that have come organically across the board from public who has taken a part of the process. So that's all I have. Primarily just want to mention that can't emphasize enough that this falls within the same zoning district with a modified process.
Thank you. Okay, commissioners, it's your turn.
Dan, I have a couple questions, I guess. First off, is there anything, activity or application in the industrial area that would trigger the city's rights for extraterritorial review?
As of right now, under the existing process, the city would be any stakeholder like everybody else. And so the major overlap that we do have is when we do the minor subdivisions, and they have the 2-mile authority. But within the conditional use permit process, it pretty much comes down to a courtesy of notifying them. The one thing this ordinance does do is it does increase the notification to 1 mile as far as the certified abstractor listing and the property owners who would be directly notified. But in terms of coordinating with the Sioux City planning and zoning and everything, I know staff going forward will definitely continue to cultivate the relationship as far as notifying and bringing them into the process. But they would, at this point, under the existing process, be a commenter like everyone else as far as offering their perspective on why they might feel an area may be suitable or may not be suitable for the type of project in terms of, both sides doing their long-range planning and seeing how projects fit or not.
This, another question directed to you too, Dan. With the industrial area, is there anything in our ordinance that would limit or preclude the ability to have any of that ground within that industrial area become a public conservation area?
Our zoning ordinance itself does have a conservation type of district referenced, but we don't have sections that are in there directly defining, for example, like the setback situation. And so as you see within this ordinance before you right now, there are a couple definitions added there which define what a conservation area is. That language is very similar to what was put into the standalone wind ordinance as far as the setback pertaining to that. And so this reference to public conservation areas was added into this to facilitate this solar ordinance for regulating the respective conservation areas. And so presently, the conservation areas would have likely been considered for example, if the conservation board was, of course, they're always a stakeholder for us when we have different projects going on. They would probably, depending on if they come to a consensus, comment on their perspective, like the city or others, on how they feel about a respective project. And so a lot of times that goes to the commission to definitely consider those aspects. So to respond to that, this would be a new ground as far as the setbacks for conservation areas.
I guess this would just be a comment that I would have then. The general industrial area is limited. We have X number of acres in there. And if a public conservation area were created either within that area or near that bordering area, that mile setback would take away a lot of ground within the industrial area that then you can't do something maybe with the solar. So then you're back to the situation where you're taking away more ground that's already in that area and not allowing for that development. They're going to be hunting for ag land outside of it then because they can't do it in the industrial area. So I would have a little concern of placing that setback in there and not just allowing for the conditional use permit to handle that situation if it arises. Because you can actually have a public conservation area within the industrial area if somebody were to choose to donate or create that area. And if it was in the heart of the industrial area, you're going to take away a mile all the way around that for solar development then, if we adopt this setback.
Okay, so my understanding is you're saying that if areas are identified that are in the area adjacent, that the setback would actually offer more limitations to.
In the industrial
Yeah,
zone.
okay.
That's where I would have some
Specific.
concern
Okay.
with that. Or like I said, even within the industrial area, who's to say you couldn't? I mean, is there anything in our ordinance that doesn't allow for public conservation area within that area?
I'm not aware of anything that speaks to that type of level of a setback. What I am aware of is the way this is new ground for our zoning ordinance to put additional area-based setbacks in there other than our home district, zoning district dimensional standards. Typically, the way land use has been handled is by the typical use within the respective zoning district, where we put the C in there, we have the expectations, then we evaluate the area through the conditional use permit. But I'm not aware of other setbacks, including conservation, that would have teeth in there to separate out those areas. And so zoning districts themselves, on placing them in the industrial areas, sort of differentiate and divide the county into those areas that are on our menu of options.
Do we have access to the location of all these easements on, like, for Beacon, for example,
Well, may I ask which type?
the conservation easements? It talks about conservation easements.
Yeah, it can be possibly, we did last, I believe, in the wind debates with the supervisors, there have been kind of some maps that have highlighted some of those respective areas. So by the recorder's office and other documents, they can definitely be acquired.
I guess I'm gonna come back with one more question. If I own land in the industrial area and I donate it for a public conservation easement, then that's going to give me that mile of protection around my property for solar development, if we adopt this setback.
This setback would create that buffer around the conservation area.
And there is nothing that stops somebody within the industrial area from creating a public conservation area.
It would have to be going through the normal process of depending on if they want to even go zone it with the conservation district. But what I have found is much of our conservation areas that are out there by easement, much of them are on the agricultural preservation zoning district. So the zoning district itself, it is possible there could be something that's zoned in industrial that could become that type of thing if it goes through the process of adopting it into the system for conservation purposes.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments? Commissioners, questions?
I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to make it clear that I plan to vote against this amendment. And my reasoning is very consistent with the comments I made in January, the last time this item was brought to our attention. I don't believe and I do not support the utility scale solar as a right in all of Woodbury County and all the zoning districts, but I also don't believe that we should pigeonhole all of the utility scale solar into GI. Because if you look at the future land use map, it's a very small area. And I think there's other ways to set standards and regulate utility scale solar other than just defining the zoning district as GI. I think there's standards. I think there's overlay districts that may be an option that have been discussed in the past. And I think it comes down to, again, a concern about the lack of the need of utilities for the utility scale solar. I don't believe they need the water, the sewer, the transportation infrastructure that's already in place in a lot of that general industrial zoning district. And so I also have a concern that it's not the highest and best use for the GI. And so I think there's other options to regulate them, to set standards and allow property rights to allow them in other areas. Again, not a blanket approval by any means, but I think there can be a happy medium somewhere between both those for and against. And I'm not sure if we have all those answers or options yet. And so for that reason, I plan to vote against this item.
Anyone else? Commissioners? I guess my comment again here, our question is, we haven't had setbacks on a conditional use in the industrial area since 2008. I know that when we went through the process with Mid-American Energy with their solar panels, we went through it with a fine tooth comb. We listened to the public and we ended up with setbacks that I think everyone decided was fair and equitable. I'm concerned about setbacks that pigeonhole us or restrict us until we hear public comment.
I would agree with your comments and Tom's about that, how it is restrictive by having those setbacks that are listed there.
Okay. I like the idea that every time we get an application for conditional use, it's an individual application. We have to review all the information for that application. Gives us the flexibility to customize what we choose to do with that application. And that's always been the benefit of conditional use. Anyone else?
Chris, are you suggesting that we take all the setback requirements out of this ordinance?
I'm asking if you think that's probably a wise thing to do and treat each applicant on its own merit,
As we normally do on a,
as we have.
Conditional
It
use.
has worked. Although keeping in mind that we've only had one application since 2008. So, but I think we did a thorough job.
I guess my comment on that is the fact that, yeah, I agree that the setbacks could actually go the wrong direction and prevent areas from developing in a correct way. The conditional use allows for each individual application to be looked at and determine whether it's needed or not needed. And I don't want to limit the ability to do any of that within the industrial area, because that's the only area right now that we have for solar.
Right. Okay, comment?
Yeah, if I may add, the setbacks revert to the zoning district dimensional standards. And so you do have setbacks in there that are related much more to placement of the structures relative to the property lines where the parcels are. So you do have setbacks. And so if I understand kind of what you're saying is under the conditional use process, we know the area is kind of near the airport. So we do the stakeholder analysis. We ask for comments on those type of things. So we do glean as much information as possible about, you know, placement relative to those respective stakeholders. So that just kind of puts me back in the mindset of what the existing process is. And I might reiterate from my comments before, this draft before you lays out a process which includes you, the Board of Adjustment, and the Board of Supervisors. So if you're looking at adjusting any type of setback, putting them in or taking some out, that would still probably not adversely affect a new process as far as the permitting of the general industrial. So that's something to kind of consider if I'm interpreting what's been said here right.
Okay. That being said, do we have any other comments or questions on the rest of our proposed ordinance? If not, are we in a position or ready to move forward or backwards with the motion? I think much of the language that we've seen here, we've seen through several of the other ordinances that have been provided throughout all of our meetings from other counties that apparently are doing well with it, to my knowledge.
Yeah, and again, it's been vetted through the county attorney's office as far as the process, the procedure going forward. And yeah, again, this being a recommendation of the commission, you could recommend the whole thing or a form of it, or if you have recommendations for some adaptation of it, you could definitely make a change adjustment and send it to the supervisors and however you see fit, your recommendation.
I guess if I were to make a motion to recommend this to the supervisors, I would include in that the setbacks are the current setbacks within the zoning district and not expanding any other setbacks such as the public conservation area to 1 mile or any other expansion that's within this chart that's above and beyond the current zoning district setbacks.
Okay. Are you suggesting striking the table?
Anything within the table that is outside of the current zoning district setbacks for industrial. Like you said, we already have setbacks for buildings for certain, those that are in the general industrial ordinance currently.
Okay, so you had made a reference to conservation areas.
That's one that stuck out, the 1 mile expansion there. I guess I can't speak to what if there's a setback from a cemetery currently.
That was pretty much, I know that showed up in the wind ordinance, basically for the cemetery. The occupied residences, we've seen kind of a industry standard through some of the different ordinances that have been provided to us as far as whether there's a dwelling out there. We do have some dwellings still out in the industrial area under the grandfathered scenario there, excuse me, legal nonconforming, I should say, aspect. So are you making a reference to each of those, or would you want to leave occupied in residence? And
Well, I guess that goes back to what's the current setback in the industrial area for residents?
well, the residence scenario, we would not permit new houses.
No, but current residents, what's the setback if solar were to go in or?
We would
or
not, yeah, excuse me, we wouldn't have a prescribed one.
Okay.
So that would be introducing one.
I guess I would be more comfortable striking all of this and then allowing the conditional use permit to take care of that at the time.
Okay,
So I would make that motion to recommend.
so you see it more so reverting to the zoning district dimensional standards for placement of structures.
Yes,
Okay, so that's a motion.
yes.
We have a motion.
Could you restate?
And make the motion to recommend the ordinance to the supervisors excluding the setbacks that are within it and just reverting to the general industrial setbacks.
And if I may stop you mid-motion, apologize for that. If you're going that route, I would suggest you strike the definitions
Okay.
for those areas.
And
For the-
I'll add that then too, that we strike the definitions for the public conservation area.
And there's another subsection in there for
There's-
public conservation. There's 2 spots.
Spots where I was,
Right. Public conservation.
public conservation area, that's not a definition, that's
To remove that section
just
J.
to remove that section J would be fine.
And then R, on whatever page that
Is
is,
that a definition?
that's a definition.
Okay, so R also the definition, yeah, I already, that's the one we just talked about.
does the same go for each of the other definitions? Resident, I think occupied residences is in there.
Okay. So also I would add that all definitions pertaining to the chart, residence, cemetery, public right of way, public drainage district right of way, and airports.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion. Anybody need that red dot? Can I get a second? Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion, I believe, I didn't hear your vote, Corey. What was it? Aye, okay, or the ordinance, the way Tom specified it. Okay, so that's like 4-1. Carries, okay. All right, so next item on the agenda, if we're ready to move on, is item number 6, which is public comment on matters not on the agenda. Do we have anyone that wants to speak to that? I'm seeing no one. Do we have a number 7 staff update?
Not too many things. I did mention this a few months ago. Woodbury County is hosting the County Zoning Administrator Conference called COZO toward the end of May. I'll probably be sending out some message about it. It's really kind of an interesting opportunity to get to learn about how other counties through other officials are administering their ordinances, as well as learning about different sessions of different zoning topics. This will be at the Hilton Garden Inn coming up. I had the dates kind of memorized, but it's toward the, hey, Don, do you remember the dates? Okay, it was towards the end of May. I think 22nd, 23rd, in there somewhere, but I will, we're still working on some of the details, but we're really excited about
Not bad.
hosting that. And so I will keep
Congratulations,
everybody informed.
I think. Congratulations, Don. Okay, good. Good. Excellent. Anything else?
That would be it.
Okay. And we're going to move on to item number 8, commissioner comment or inquiry. I'm seeing no one jumping forward, so we will move on to item number 9, which is adjournment. I need a motion to adjourn, please.
Motion to adjourn.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone, for your participation.